for success in 2018 in the midterms. And Republicans, you follow that, you'll be successful. Also tonight, if 2017 is defined by any one thing, it will be the news media's epic fail. What did we hear all last year, the entire year, from the mainstream liberal media? Russia, collusion, 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 Russia, Russia, Russia. Well, that fake news narrative is pretty much completely blown up in their faces after a year of nonstop, breathless reporting, anonymous sources, hysteria on their part. Because so far, up to today, zero evidence of collusion between President Trump and the Russians. So now the media, they've got to latch on to something quick. They're not going to admit they're wrong. So the new narrative of the liberal media is that conservatives actually hate the FBI. They hate law enforcement because of the bias that we're exposing in the Russia investigation. Watch this.
It is astounding to see conservatives acting like the FBI of all organizations is some kind of liberal deep state, horror show.
The message is, don't look at or think about what may be under investigation. Let's find whatever we can to undermine the pillars of the respect that we tend to confer upon institutions like the FBI and the Justice Department.
There's only one institution that really has been tainted through these months, and that is the Trump presidency. It's tainted by the president's lies, by his disrespect for American institutions operating under the law.
The career civil servants at the FBI and in the intelligence community are working as hard as ever, but this can't be good for morale.
Well, that's the new narrative. Conservatives, this is laughable. Republicans hate law enforcement. And you know why it's laughable? Because the liberal media, they're not the people that respect law and law enforcement, and they've been that way for decades. We'll explain in a second. But first, I want to educate all my failing colleagues in the media that have been wrong so often. Now, if you had any sense of real law and order in our constitutional republic, you might investigate Hillary Clinton and, yeah, the numerous felonies we know she committed. If you care about it, you should maybe look into her top aide, Uma Abedin, and her criminally mishandling of classified information in those emails. And if you in the media, if you really cared about truth at all, maybe look into this. And that's Mueller's merry band of Democratic donors who, let's see, contributed, only to Democrats, politicians like Obama and Hillary and the DNC. Imagine for a second if it was a bunch of Republican donors that were investigating through a special counsel Hillary Clinton. Yeah, you guys in the media, you would be foaming at the mouth on a nightly basis. And if the media, if you're interested in truth, wouldn't you ask why Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration, why would they ever do something really stupid and give 20% of America's uranium supply to Russia? Yeah, that Russia, Putin's Russia, the adversary, the bad actor Russia, when, by the way, we don't even have enough uranium as it is. And maybe you'd follow the money if it was Donald Trump and $145 million pouring into the Clinton Foundation and her coffers while she's Secretary of State from the very people involved in this particular deal. Again, if it was Donald Trump, I know you'd be all over it. And, of course, you would want to know, was there a quid pro quo? Is that pay to play? But, of course, you don't want to know that truth. Now, let's go back to this new narrative that's coming from the fake news media that conservatives hate the FBI. The exact opposite is true. Now, on this show, if you have watched, this is now my 23rd year, I have always respected the men and women in law enforcement, policemen, firemen, paramedics. I respect the intelligence community and, of course, the FBI and even the CIA. Yes, I respect the hard work they do. And now the biased press, they're the ones who have this history of utter disdain for members of law enforcement. For example, it wasn't that long ago, the media was trashing police. Remember how many of them supported Black Lives Matter? You may remember this. This is a great invention. It's called videotape. It can remind you.
Thousands of Americans are marching in New York and Washington and across the country, demanding a justice system that applies the same to everybody and honors our values. And we want you to know that our hearts are out there marching with them.
Many African-American people said, look, we were introduced to terror long before 9/11. The vicious police forces of America that have victimized us and the way in which white supremacy operated.
What's flared up in Baltimore has heightened awareness once again of this issue of police brutality.
Yes.
In Baltimore, alleged police brutality.
We have repeatedly said on this show that we have the utmost respect. We praise law enforcement, the FBI, the intelligence community. The issue we have in this particular case is very specific because you have a few select people that have shown a very anti-Trump political bias. So we have to ask the media a couple of questions. Do you support people like Peter Strzok, the guy that hates Trump, loves Hillary, the FBI agent involved in everything, and his FBI lawyer girlfriend, Lisa Page? Together, by the way, they call President Trump just about every single swear word that I can even think of, and I swear. And by the way, attack Trump and their supporters. They also texted about an insurance policy in Andy's office, which we think, of course, is Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, in case Donald Trump actually pulled off the impossible and won the election. So do you media people, do you support people like the disgraced former FBI Director Comey, admitted under oath to having his friend leak information to the New York Times in the hopes it would bring about a special counsel, which it did? And Comey also likely broke the law, writing his Trump notes on FBI computers, and then, by the way, removing that government property from the Bureau. And by the way, he exonerated Hillary Clinton. This is my favorite. In the email investigation, before he ever did the investigation. I'm sure if that was against Hillary, you guys would be pretty upset. And then, of course, Mueller's team of liberal donations. As we have told you, over $50,000 his team has donated over the years to Democrats. And by the way, none to President Trump. One of Mueller's top investigators, Jeannie Ray, represented the Clinton Foundation during a 2015 racketeering case. I guess she's not biased. And then you got Andrew Weissman. He's the guy that oversaw the highly controversial obstruction of justice case against Arthur Anderson. And by the way, it destroyed the company, cost tens of thousands of jobs. In 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court turned over Weissman's conviction, a 9-0 unanimous ruling. And as part of the Enron investigation, Weissman also sent 4 Merrill Lynch executives to jail. That conviction was also overturned by the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. That's Mueller's team. And next, you have demoted DOJ official Bruce Orr and his wife Nellie. Bruce Orr met with Fusion GPS. You know, those officials that came up with the phony Russian propaganda dossier that we now know his own wife was working on the opposition against Donald Trump, that produced and bought and paid for that fake news Russia propaganda. Sounds like collusion to me. And finally, of course, the Deputy FBI Director, Andrew McCabe. His wife, Jill, took over $500,000 from Clinton ally, former Governor Terry McAuliffe, and Democrats for a failed Virginia State Senate seat. That's an insane amount of money. McCabe is also directly tied, well, like so many others, to the dossier. And during recent testimony on Capitol Hill, McCabe conflicted statements from previous witnesses and also claimed not to know when he found out the Clintons and the DNC funded the dossier. And according to reports, McCabe is expected to retire next year with a big, fat taxpayer pension. Does any of this matter to you in the liberal mainstream media, or do you just like to fail and be wrong every day? You know, are you supporting all these people? You're supporting that conduct? You're supporting that political bias? You don't see a conflict of interest? Do you really think that this isn't corruption at the highest level? You know, these criticisms that we are making, these are facts. They're not about institutions. They're about the violation of constitutional rights and the abuse of power at the top levels of our government. This is serious, and we've been right, you've been wrong. And finally tonight, 3